Hello, everyone, and welcome to another ID at Xbox stream. Of course, I'm your host, Timber, with ID at Xbox, and I am hanging out with two special guests to play Road to Guangdong. I have James with Excalibur Games and Alex with the Just Add Oil, two of the people who brought Road to Guangdong to us today. Super excited to have you both on. Hello.
Hi, thanks very much for having us.
Excellent. So, as I dive in, we're going to be going on a road trip, my understanding, through 90s China. Could you tell me, I know this is like a huge question to start off with, but could you tell me a little bit about what, I guess, to expect as we go in? Can you tell me just a little bit more about Road to Guangdong?
Yes, so basically it's a story about a student or an ex-student called Sunny, and some unfortunate stuff's just sort of happened to her family, and so she is sort of ends up visiting her aunt, who's this lady, her Guma, and she sort of has to go back to Guangdong. She's been living in Hong Kong where she went to university for the last few years. And that's sort of how the story starts.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, we're already asking questions. Why are we here? And also, hi everyone in chat. Welcome Dementia, Marshmallow Thief, Angel, Cloven, Jessica. I saw K4, Yavors. Hello and happy Tuesday. Of course, chat, if you have any questions for the devs, feel free to drop them in chat. We'd love to hear from you guys as well. I know I, for one, have been very excited to try this. This I kept seeing in our summer demo event, and every time I saw it, it caught my eye. It's very colorful, which I kind of want to talk about. What was kind of the inspiration for, at least, we'll get into all the inspiration, but for the visual design, can you talk a little bit about that? I just think it's very unique. I love how it looks.
Yeah, so the visual design's sort of a tricky one. Like, really, it'd be better if our artist Nick was here to answer that, but I can tell you sort of what I know of it, which is Nick's this guy who, we've worked with him before and I've known him for a few years, and he's just got this weird knack of, like, he'll always just find something unique and just make it work in a way that, and it's not to say the people, aren't as good as Nick, because that's not true, but Nick's got this really particular skill for just sort of creating really holistic, coherent sort of art styles, and he just, he's like a chameleon. Like the games that he's worked on, you wouldn't know it was the same person who'd come up with the art style for it. And as you play Road 2, you can see there's quite a lot of colours that sort of shouldn't work together, and somehow Nick makes them work. And I think that's part of his power. But the other thing is just, he likes to do the least amount of work to get the most amount of effect, and I think you can sort of feel it, like he gets a lot of impact and a lot of sort of character and a lot of I don't know what you'd call it really. He gets a lot of bang for the buck, as it were.
Yeah.
Like, he's one of the fastest artists I've ever worked with. Like,
It's the best way to work, though, right?
Yeah.
Most efficient.
For sure.
Yeah. You work smart, not hard. And I gotta say, I mean, there is so much detail in just the colors. I think that boldness, really catches you. You don't need a whole lot of texture to capture that. They just have a great feel. That's awesome. Awesome. Let's see, chat.
Yeah, there's actually almost no texture in the whole game as it goes. I think, without wanting to get boringly technical, we probably only use about 10 materials in the whole game.
That's awesome.
Alex, I have no clue what you're talking about at this point.
No, it's not. So yeah, it's mostly colour, right? is the main takeaway. There's hardly any sort of textual detail. There's bits on the car where it's rusty and stuff.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Look
in
at.
fact, even that you can see it sort of follows polygons rather than, being in a texture.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot. The light and the shading on the car just gives it. It's so cool. Speaking of the car, I'm kind of checking out this cool. This is, from my understanding, this is a family car that we're taking on this road trip, right? That's.
Yeah, so the story of the car's sort of weird. We don't really go into it in massive detail in the story, but like when we were working out what to do and how we were going to make it work, we did. So essentially, when the game's set in China in the 90s, it was a really big period of change, so you had, like since the Second World War or thereabouts, you had sort of communism was sort of made it so that you didn't have people didn't have cars, people didn't really own their own stuff. And that particular kind of car is modelled, broadly speaking, on a real world car that was never owned by people. It was sort of owned by dignitaries and sort of high up local officials in the Communist Party. And so what happened was Sonny's aunt bought it second hand when it was being scrapped, because it's sort of a luxury car, even though it's sort of old and janky looking. And so, she did it up, and so that sort of happened a long time ago. I guess you can see it's quite old.
Yeah.
But
She's well loved.
yeah, definitely well lived. I mean, well, that's it. Yeah, the family's spent a lot of time and effort keeping it on the road. And it didn't actually belong to them. It sort of belongs to the restaurant business that they run. So. Yeah, it's interesting, and like around this time, you started to see quite a lot of sort of more Western-looking cars appearing in China, because people were allowed to buy cars, and there was sort of big sort of PR stories put out that sort of spread around the world. There's a really famous one actually. A lady was the first person who bought a car privately in China, according to the news stories. I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been some sort of weird hybrid Mazda that built in China sort of thing. But so yeah, cars were getting more popular and more common, and so I mean, even then, compared to what you'd see in China these days, the roads are basically empty.
Yeah. There's the oil. This is cool. So I didn't also expect, you have to care for this car as well. Angel says to play the demo for this. Very cool. She's a little confused with the car maintenance. Do you want to, while I'm filling up the gas for this car, could you speak a little bit to the mechanics in taking care of your car and refilling it, and this kind of really cool first-person view where you get to touch the car essentially?
Yeah, so we wanted to make the car be a character in the story, and obviously cars don't talk. I mean, unless you're talking about Pixar movies or something. So we wanted to sort of introduce an emotional attachment by getting the player to fix it. Really, I guess we wanted to try and keep it light touch, like there's other games out there where you interact slavishly with the objects that you're trying to fix or whatever. We wanted to try and keep it quite light, because we didn't want it to be something that gets in the way of the story. We want it to be, you're sort of shepherding the car along rather than, taking it apart with spanners.
That's awesome.
And so, Sandy being a very old car, she breaks down a lot.
I love that she has a
You have to
name.
sort of-
Also, that's fantastic. I already
Yeah.
I'm already very attached to Sandy.
Glad to hear it.
I think also Alexi, the car's kind of really the home of a lot of Sonny and Gumar's adventures, isn't it? And it's
Yeah. Exactly.
representative of their journey in some ways as well.
Yeah, it's sort of their sitting room on wheels. I mean, well, that's the thing, is the driving in this game's not. It's not about putting your foot down and braking hard into corners. It's you're driving a car that's essentially like a bed with wheels on the corners, and you have to just sort of trundle along and try not to crash.
Oh, so
This
you
is news to
can-
me,
you
Alex.
can
Maybe
crash.
that's why I'm not great at it.
Oh yeah, well, you can bump it into stuff.
Okay. Chat's already
It's,
rooting
you know,
for me to crash, and thank you very much, chat. Hopefully you can't crash in this
Well, you
game,
know,
but here we are.
well, I mean, we made it so that it's, you know, it's primarily about telling the story of Sunny and Gumar's adventure, visiting the various members of their family, and just, we didn't really want to do anything that would, you know, massively get in the way of that.
Yeah.
Like, the driving is, I guess, just something to connect the story in a lot of ways, and really to set the scene. Like, you know, road trips.
Yeah.
It's funny, I think I mentioned this in a previous interview when Yen and I were talking to somebody about the game about a year ago now. You know, for both myself and Yen and other members of the Just Add Oil team, you know, big life-changing events, sort of, or decisions that affect them have happened in cars. You know, like I've got relatives who live in Scotland, which, you know, it's quite a long way from where I live in the south-ish part of England. I live more in the Midlands, but it's like an 8-hour drive up to where my aunt and uncle live on the west coast of Scotland. And so when you're on a drive with your family in the car, you just, you know, you listen to the radio and the kid falls asleep, and you end up talking about, you know, should we get an extension? Like, you know, should we get a new car? Should we move house? Just all the things that maybe don't come up in everyday conversation. They just sort of, you know, driving along in the car seems like the natural time to talk about them. And so we wanted the driving to be like that, like it's sort of sedate and trundly. You know, you can't really be in a hurry, because if you go too fast, the car breaks.
Yeah, I already got the coolant sign on. I didn't realize I was going 80 in Sandy.
Well, it is only kilometres an hour, so it's not real speed. But yeah.
It was very indicative to how I drive, though. I caught myself. But it's so cool because I immediately was like, okay, let me slow down. And then you just get a better view of the world when you slow down anyway. So it's rewarding to do that. I love the idea of I road trip a lot with my family, so this was kind of that perfect game for me. I miss doing that a lot. So
Yeah, I think it's part of the modern human condition, really, right? Like, if you live anywhere these days, like, people go to college or they go to study somewhere, or they move away from home for a job, and like, before you know it, you know, your brothers and your sisters and your mum and your uncle and your aunts and your cousins are all living, you know, 4 or 5 hours away from each other in total. And so it's sort of a thing that everybody does. And sort of one of the reasons we set the game in the 90s, apart from the fact that it's an interesting time in China's history, was that, you know, it's sort of pre-internet and pre-mobile phones. And so you couldn't just ring people up or text someone. You had to physically go and visit them or send them a letter. And obviously sending
This
them
would
a
be a
letter,
very
you've got to
short
wait for
game.
the post. Yeah.
This would be a very short game, wouldn't it, if it was set in modern day, I think.
Yeah, it would.
right.
Just hit them up on Facebook, you're done.
Yeah.
Job done.
Exactly, yeah, Facebook. Hey, can you take a photo of that letter that Uncle Wong left you? Yeah, done.
Yeah.
You know.
It's funny you say that, because I still get handwritten letters from my grandmother. So, and it inspires me to want to send like letters and stuff to family. There's something really cool about that. I love the idea of a throwback into the 90s, where you kind of, those were your choices, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just the little things. Like, if you wanted to find out some information, you had to go to a library. You know, there's just something about the 90s that makes it more sort of interesting for telling stories, because you can't just get answers like you can these days. Everything was, you know, you had to go and find an expert who works in a museum, or you had to go and find a book. It's like, there's this TV show from the 90s, The Adventures of Lois and Clark, or whatever it's called. Do you remember, like, that Superman TV show? And that has aged so badly, because it literally was made about 2 days before the internet switched on, and before they had, like, computer special effects. And so, like, of all TV shows, it's aged the worst. But like, that was sort of the last TV show where you did have that sort of stuff. You know, obviously Lois Lane's a reporter, so they would have to go and report and, like, hunt down sources and talk to people with a notepad. And it's like, you know, it's so bizarre by modern standards that things were done that way, I suppose. But
Yeah, I think for some reason X-Files comes to mind with that as well, where they were always like in the field, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the 90s is also an interesting time to set this story specifically and the story of Sunny and Gumar in terms of their generational differences.
That's
You know, you talk about China changing, and I think Yen Ooi, who's a novelist, an author, and a lecturer as well. She worked on Road to Guangdong, and she brought a lot to the game story-wise, and she brought, you know, some of her own experiences into the game. And I think the generational differences between Sunny and Guma are really interesting. Where with the restaurant, for example, Gumar kind of felt that she should have inherited this restaurant, you know, when she was younger, but she didn't, because back then, in that time, in that place, the men in the family, you know, were given those honors instead of Gumar when she was, you know, deserving of it.
Yeah.
And so you have this interesting tension between Gumar and Sunny, because now that Sunny's been awarded the restaurant, I think on one hand Gumar's a little bit, you know, jealous and angsty that Sunny's got this when she wasn't awarded that opportunity herself, but on the other side she's like, yeah, this is cool change, I support you. So that's kind of at the center of some of the tension between Sunny and Gumar as well, I think, which is I think an important detail for when the game's set as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can feel the tension talking to you. Like, you should have this. Like that's really, really interesting. And with family. Family seems to be just a huge theme on in Road to Guangdong. I'm reading too, so I'm like, it's hard. Like, you get invested so fast. Like, I'm immediately like, no, she's my Mima. Like, she's my Mima.
You haven't even met the dog yet, so
yeah,
if you're invested already before meeting the dog, then it's not going to go well.
Yeah. That's awesome. And for those joining you, because I've just listening to you guys talk while also playing this has just been incredible so far. Everyone, welcome to Road to Guangdong. This is a new ID release that actually came out, I believe it was Friday, last Friday. So yeah, super excited. Again, this was in our summer demo event. So if you did demo it, it is out now. You can check it out in full. Definitely do that. This is already incredible. And I love that so much of it has just been like honest dialogue between family members. Like we really only have met the one character, but you get so much information and so much character to what your family dynamics are like. And that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of like the whole, almost like the point of the game, really. Like it the story of how it came about, sort of. I don't know whether it's interesting or not. I'm assuming it is.
Yeah, I was about to ask. I'd love to know.
James works with my friend Steve, who's the development director at Excalibur. And
hi, Steve. I'm waving.
Yeah, Steve,
waving, but hi,
are.
Steve, if you're watching.
It's probably like doing CrossFit somewhere in a room, like socially distanced and safely, but you know, still probably lifting stuff up, like throwing tires about or whatever. It's quite muscly, Steve. But I'm getting way off point here, aren't I?
So slightly derailed.
Yeah. So what happened was Steve approached me because the main thing that I do. I mean, I obviously work with the Just Add Oil people, and we collaborated to make this game. The main thing that I've done historically was, I used to work in AAA. Like I've written like game engines and like been making games since the mid '90s. And the main thing I do these days is I port people's games for them. And Steve came to me saying, hey, we need a game porting or whatever, and we got talking about stuff, and then it turned out that he didn't need a game porting in the end, but there was this gap in the roster for Excalibur for a sort of game broadly like Road to Guangdong, and they just said, pitch us something like with cars and people and stuff. And I had this mad idea, like when I was a kid, I used to watch this like old Japanese TV show that was on in the UK called Monkey ! And it's the story of Journey to the West, and it got me obsessed with Chinese culture. So like I've like learnt kung fu, and I mean I don't speak any Chinese or anything, but like in as much as sort of like a random white kid from the Midlands of England can be into Chinese culture. Like, you know, I am.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when Steve approached me about this game, I was like, oh, do you know what I really want to do? It's like a modern retelling of story, Journey to the West, like a proper epic, go off and discover stuff. And, you know, because the thing with Journey to the West is, like, sure, the Monkey King and Chubutaka and, you know, Sandy and Pigsy, they go off and they journey to the West and they get scrolls and they come back. But, like, it's the point of the story isn't what they do, it's like what happens to them. You know, Monkey goes from being this you know, sort of headstrong, belligerent fool who's like really strong and clever, but very sure of himself. He sort of eventually learns humility, and, you know, stuff. And so that's where sort of what I pitched them was that, but with this story where you have to go and visit your relatives and sort of gain enlightenment about life on like a small scale. Like, it wasn't going to be an actual retelling, more of like an homage. I mean, that's sort of why the car's called Sandy, in fact. But then, you know, obviously I'm not in any way Chinese, so we realised we needed to get somebody who had like a proper cultural perspective to make the game, you know, be what it should be. So that's where Yen came in. Like, we hunted around and we found Yen, and she's amazing. And she sort of took what I wanted to do with the story and went, do you know what, Alex, that's sort of not going to work. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. So yeah, we sat down and we hashed it out, and, you know, what we came up with is this weird little story where,
like,
you know,
No,
but I mean, I love it. I say weird in like a good way, right? Like, do you know, weird like a Wes Anderson movie, you know, like, it's sort of, I mean, it would be wrong to like compare it directly to something like, and, you know, the Grand Budapest Hotel or something, but that's sort of what we wanted to do, was make a game where it's like not really about the specific things that you do, it's more about what happens to you and the characters that are in the game and the stuff that happens along the way. You know, like I guess it's about the experience rather than where you get to at the end of it.
Yeah, it's the road trip, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that, to me, when I go on road trips, it's every few hours we stop, especially the scenic routes, just pulling over constantly to look at things. So yeah, absolutely. So we have to go to the mechanics. Is this the mechanics? Nice.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, Sandy's all banged up. Needs a bit of love to get her roadworthy.
Yeah. Let's see. SML, welcome. You're all over the road. Are you driving under the influence? No, it makes me nervous driving Sandy, and then I drive worse. It's a whole thing. And dread, difficult. Your volume keeps going up and down.
Yeah, my volume apparently is dodgy. Would it help? I'll put the microphone a bit closer to my mouth and we'll see if that helps.
Yeah, it definitely, it sounded a little louder for me, so that should do it. All right, let us know how that is, chat. Thank you, Dread Zero. Much appreciated.
Yeah, if I still sound all wobbly, then I apologise. It's probably just the way I talk.
All right, we got a sounds good from K4. Excellence.
Cool.
I think, as you were saying, Alex, about Yen coming onto the team, she certainly added a lot of, you know, authenticity and a lot of the little touches. And are you saying that, you know, the dialogue feels quite natural and honest? I mean,
yeah. I mean, Yen took what was like, I guess, a scaffolding, like, or a rough idea of where we wanted to go with it, and she just transformed it into this sort of really touching family story about, I guess, you know, it's really about, like, you know, I'm making not a lot of sense here. My son's parents have been killed, right? And that's sort of what caused this story to happen. So she's inherited the restaurant, and it's a family concern, right? Like, their family have been running the restaurant for a couple of generations, and her father's brothers and sisters are all a bit like, you seriously can't leave the restaurant to your daughter, she's only 21, what were you thinking? But obviously he's dead, so they can't argue with him.
Right.
So what you have to do is drive around and visit all your relatives and basically sort of show them that you're not this inept teenager anymore that they used to know, and that you've sort of grown up into a young woman who knows what they're doing. And that's sort of what it is. Like, you know, you visit relatives and they've got stuff going on in their lives, and then maybe things aren't as perfect as they could be, or they're unhappy about something, and Sunny just sort of wanders in, and even though she's sad and she's got all this stuff going on in her life, she sort of takes the time to help everybody put their lives right, and that's sort of, you know, what pulls the story along.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm gonna like listening to it. Like this is, I'm already getting like emotional. This game is gonna make me cry a few times. I can already feel it. Just SML says, anytime developer makes a game where you gotta drive somewhere, I need to ask if they've played Desert Bus and if it's influenced them at all.
No, I haven't. No, like weirdly,
You've seen it
haven't
though, right?
played any. I'm sort of broadly aware of it, I suppose. Like
I think I once watched a 10-hour Let's Play of Desert Bus. Does that count?
it's the one where you just like proper drive along in the middle of nowhere for ages, right?
Yeah. And it just
Yeah, I
feels
mean,
slightly
I've
to the left, I
seen
think.
sort of, like, yeah, the only sort of slow driving-y sort of game that I played before this was that one, you know, with the crazy four-wheel drive vehicles in the mud. I don't know what it's called. My friend's obsessed with
Mudrunner?
it. Yeah, could be. Yeah, he's obsessed with it, and it's like it's cool, but like, I didn't really have the psychological or mental effort needed to be making, like, I think it would have been a very different game if we'd had it so that you had to, like, you know, be in the right gear to get up the hills and stuff.
Right. As somebody who failed learning stick in real life, I appreciate that. Thank you. I tried learning for like a week and I was like, oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's like a whole extra set of, it's like, I always think of, like, you know, because you've got a clutch and everything when you change gears. I always find it, feel it's a bit like learning to play the drums. Like, I'm fine with the drums with my hands. As soon as I get to foot patterns, you know, it's out the window. I can't do it at all. And like learning to change gears a lot like that. Like, it's really hard, and then suddenly it just sort of clicks eventually, I think, usually. Like, in the UK, there's hardly any automatic cars, so you basically just get forced to learn to drive stick.
I think from our point of view at Excalibur, as we obviously publish a game, what's interesting for us is that we do exclusively management and simulation games, or the majority of our first-party titles are management and simulation games. So we're interested in, you know, the more hardcore simulations as well as stuff like this, which is lighter, but there's always some sort of simulation and management elements. And yeah, what I really like in games personally is when games use their actual gameplay mechanics to help tell the story and intertwine that into the story as well. And so from my personal, you know, player perspective and then the publisher perspective, it just works very nicely. You know, the way that the light simulation gameplay is almost there to, you know, reinforce the themes and the ways that, you know, the relationship between Sunny and Gumar. So
Yeah, exactly. And it's
thought
about
that was really
like
cool from a
taking
publishing
care of,
perspective.
yeah, and well, it's been, you know, working with Excalibur has genuinely been like joyful. Like, I've worked with a lot of publishers over the years, and they're all great in their own ways. But like Excalibur, I think is probably my favourite. You know, for lots of weird little reasons, I suppose. But just, you know, they're nice people, and they sort of, if you know,
Lots
once
of weird
they get a
little
game,
reasons, the main one being
yeah,
me.
but
Sure.
you're not that weird and little, don't worry.
Mm.
I've known weirder and littler. But yeah, I mean, James is absolutely right though. Like, the thing with the sort of light simulation aspect, really, it's sort of, it's not even a metaphor, is it? Really, it's like an interactive metaphor for the responsibility that Sunny's got. You know, she's got the responsibility to her family, and part of that is sort of keeping her father's legacy alive, which is the car that him and Gumar used to drive around in. And so, you know, I don't know, yeah, the whole thing was sort of, when we were trying to work out what we should do with stuff, we were always asking ourselves sort of, what makes this more sort of emotionally engaging? Like, it was rarely about, you know, like, should we put clutches and stuff in? Like, should we have clutch plates that can break? And we, you know, at one point we had quite a few more bits that could go wrong with the car, and it just got a bit like playing a Haynes manual, you know? Like, we so we deffed it off and made it simpler basically, and I think it's sort of the level of which you have to worry about the car sort of suits the kind of game it is now a lot better, I think.
Yeah, actually, I was curious. I have questions for you guys, but you're doing an amazing job at answering a lot of what I had in mind.
We just answer our own questions. We just sat here, you know.
No, I love it. You have made this job so much easier. I get to play the game and listen to you guys talk about it. It's my favorite. What?
Well, I mean, that's my ideal, right?
Yeah. what was the first kind of? I love knowing origin stories game. I love knowing how did it start? What was like the very first spark of life that was Road to Guangdong, and how you went from that spark to where we're at now? What's some of the things you guys were looking at? I know you spoke a little bit about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so do you want to know like how we made it, or do you want to know about sort of more the creative process?
I like the creative process.
Or
Like,
both.
where were your heads at the time, and things like that. Great.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I wanted to just make a sort of interesting sort of quest game set in modern times. Well, not quest. It's not like an RPG, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's sort of, and maybe it's not even that epic. And I think in some ways that's what it was for me. I wanted to make like an everyday, normal, epic quest like normal people have. Like in an RPG, you get up in the morning, you walk to the edge of your village, this like lightning bolt falls out of the sky, and you have to go destroy God to save the universe or whatever. That's what happens, right? And but like in real life, you have to get up and go to the pharmacy or the chemist, or like go to the shops and buy some food, and sort of like you wouldn't want to do that level of interaction necessarily for an actual game. But if part of the way that the game works is that sort of touching on that level of interaction of the banal and the everyday, you start to get into. Actually, this is one of my favourite bits about the game. What's happening to you right now is like driving along at night. Like I would just do this for hours when we were building it. Like I would accidentally be playing for like 45 minutes and had forgotten that I was supposed to be testing something. I'd just be like trundling along.
So that's why those bugs weren't fixed. You were just having too much fun.
No, there's no bugs, James.
He was
There's the
busy.
occasional.
Not anymore.
Yeah, there's the occasional undocumented gameplay feature, but I believe you'll find there's no bugs. So, I mean, but
Okay,
from a
that's
sort of
so
creative
much
process
better.
point of view, like I say, we
Sorry, I was just driving without my headlights.
Oh, yeah, did you
Don't
find- there you go.
worry about it.
headlights.
Okay.
It's okay. It's China in the 90s. Nobody minds. There's only like 4 cars coming the other way. It'll be alright. Yeah, so we wanted to make this game about sort of normal everyday stuff, and just sort of those interactions between people, and just sort of getting to see someone else's world. Really that's sort of where we were coming from, I suppose. And so it sort of evolved over time. Like the original version of it, like we knew we wanted to fix the car, and we knew we wanted to be able to drive the car, and we knew we wanted to be able to talk to people. So the first version of it was just literally a car on a strip of road, and you would like drive to one end of it and hit an invisible box and then have a conversation with someone. And the car could break, and you could like change bits in a really debuggy menu-y sort of, programmer art types like way. And we just sort of took that and went, okay, what works, what doesn't, and then we would add new things to the stuff that worked and take out the stuff that didn't. And then what we ended up with was the game, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's very iterative very iterative approach, and like Yen was a massive part of that. Like we knew what we wanted to achieve sort of from an emotional impact point of view,
Yeah.
but Yen just brought this whole other angle to it. Like she knew what sort of places we should be visiting, and she knew what was interesting in Chinese culture, because obviously, like, everywhere, everybody has uncles and aunts and cousins and so forth, but they have sort of different importances in different cultures. And like one of the things that Yen really wanted to do was sort of slyly educate people on what those relationships are called, because like in different parts of China, like in general, different members of your family have got really specific names. So Gumar is like your father's eldest sister, right? That's what Gumar means.
I was gonna
It's not her
ask,
name.
I was curious, like, is it grandma? Is it
Yeah, her name's
aunt,
Grace.
or- Yeah.
Yeah, and so you've got a bunch of these relationships, like Sun Suk, which I think is like brother's middle brother or something, father's middle brother. Like I can't remember the specific taxonomy of it, because it's been a while since I looked at it. But all of the characters are known to Sunny by the familial names as well as their real names, and some of them will get quite grumpy if you use their real name to them and stuff like that. And sort of that's a sort of part of sort of how Chinese culture certainly was, and mostly is. And you know, the specific terms vary from region to region. So we used the ones for the Guangdong region. We actually had some bugs come back from the Chinese translator because they were from a slightly different part of China and they thought we were doing the wrong terms for people's names.
Oh, interesting.
And we had to sort of like, yeah, we had to have a conversation with them where we got them to speak to someone from Guangdong, he put them right, and then they were all right about it.
That's awesome. Awesome.
Just going back to your comment about the mundane, Alex, I think you're right there. There's a certain magic in the mundane, isn't there? That I don't think a lot of games
exactly. It's very
quite tap into.
in games.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you think of other mediums, you know, there's been TV and film or books or whatever. You know, there are tons of stories out there that are just about the mundane, and you know that's okay. And then there are also, you know, these epic sprawling fantasy stories out there as well. And you know, I think the perspective of games is obviously getting a lot bigger as you go. And you know, in recent years, I mean, when I think about the mundane in games, I think of stuff like, you know, Life is Strange and Tell Me Why, which has just come out as well. And some of the best parts in those games are where you just sit on a bench and take in the scenery and take in the atmosphere, and you know there is a certain magic in the mundane that can really make you, I don't know, relate to characters in a story and really, you know, walk in a character's shoes.
Yeah.
And relate to them more heavily than if they're, you know, a big bulky sci-fi space marine. And I mean, there's also room for that. I also love those games, but I like that there's now, you know, room for these sorts of games as well.
You don't relate to a space marine, though. If you do, bless.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
I had my cybernetic modifications taken out a few years back, and so I'm sort of losing my touch with the giant cyborg warrior side of my personality now. Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't believe how attached I got to my Commander Shepard in the Mass Effect games.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you had some mundane in those games as well. Though. You had
Mass Effect 2,
downtime
that
on the
game
ship,
was
right?
amazing.
So,
I agree. One of my favorites. Mass
we're
Effect.
getting it slightly.
Yeah, I
Getting a bit
cried so
sidetracked
hard
now,
in Mass
we're
Effect
just
3 when
talking about favorites.
do you know in Modern Solus the sort
Spoilers.
Oh yes, spoiler.
yeah
No, I feel like the statute of that might be a little old, but just in case.
yeah potentially a spoiler, but he also, one of my favourite bits in any game ever was when, and actually, do you know what, this is literally one of the things that I've just realised made me want to make this game. There's this bit in Mass Effect 2 when you're talking to Morden Solus and he starts doing model of a modern Major General from Pirates of
that's
Penzance,
yes.
but like a future
That's
version.
exactly what I was thinking.
And that blew my mind. I was like, oh my god, we could do this in games. This could be what games do.
They had a great
You know,
way
and sort of that's
of making strange alien characters feel so corely human, and I think that was one of those moments.
yeah, and relatable.
Yeah. Yes. Garage. I don't think we need to go to the garage actually, but while we're here. Yeah, absolutely.
Have we been to a scrap pile yet?
I did. I
Scrap
picked up
pile.
a few things. I was gonna
Yeah, we did.
ask. I didn't want to interrupt.
Right, okay.
But could you explain what was I doing there? I picked up a few things that looked like it was good quality, even if it wasn't in good health. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean that's basically the point of the scrap piles is to just the game's sort of balanced so that you've got enough money as long as you don't break down and need to be so like if your car breaks down and can't drive, you have to call the mechanic and they'll bring you to the garage, but that costs quite a lot of money and you could probably only afford to do that 2 or 3 times in a game without, you know, otherwise you'll run out of money before you get to the end. I mean, well, that's another thing about the way the game works, to just randomly go off topic again, is that like you can't really win or lose, like in a fundamental sense. Like when you run out of money, then however many members of your family who you visited, they will come to the reunion meal at New Year, and you know, the more people you manage to visit, then the more people will come to the reunion meal. So if you can manage to get your car around all of them, then you can visit your whole family and everybody will be there at the reunion meal. But if you don't, then just the people you'll visit will be there, and you know it'll just that there's more people to get because you haven't got all the achievements yet, I suppose, mostly. But it also tells you in your little in the gameplay menu here, you can see who you have and haven't sort of collected.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just like relatives.
So the point of the scrap heaps is they're sort of part of this. There's a sort of very gentle economy system going on where you need to sort of go and pop to the scrap heap and have a look, because parts have got quality as well as health, and so stuff that's good quality wears out a lot slower than stuff that's cheap.
Okay.
So you could buy a cheap wheel that's got full health for maybe 40 units of money. I deliberately didn't put a particular unit of money in because I just figured we didn't really need one. But a wheel costs 40, a cheap one, say, but that'll run out a lot quicker. Its health will wear down a lot quicker than say if you've got a very good quality wheel that's at 50%, it'll last you probably a bit longer than a cheap wheel that's at full health. So you can like buy and sell stuff, and stuff that's better quality is worth more when you sell it back on. So you can like pick up good quality items from scrap heaps and then sell them at the next garage for money, and like that will let you buy more parts. So there's you don't have to be very wheeler dealery about it, but as long as you pop into the scrap heap and just grab a couple of things, on average you'll make enough money from doing that you can keep Sandy going.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just stopping here. Awesome quality stuff at this scrap.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is it's supposed to make
Why did they
you
even
feel
chuck
like
it away?
Well, because cars break. Not everybody wants to. That's what junkyards are for. It's sort of too. Oh, I was about to say something and I've totally forgotten what I was going to say. Oh yeah. Like part of one of these big road trips is that sort of aspect of discovery and like finding stuff, and the scrap heaps, although they're like sort of a boring way to do it, they're just, you can sort of go in them and ferret about a bit and find a good, once in a while you'll find, oh, that's really good. You can get an engine that'll maybe get you a couple of hundred money that you can then spend on petrol or gas, or spending on other stuff to keep the car on the road.
I am distracted by the comment from Carnage, who says, "Oh, I see dog sitting on the map. We need to know, can you pet the dog?"
Oh yeah.
The answer is yes, you absolutely can. I think that was actually at my request because I really wanted
we were
"Can you pet the dog"
to do
Twitter account.
Yeah,
Oh, come on! Don't take this from me, Alex. It was
no. It was a really.
That's on me.
Because someone pointed it to, and I was like, we should do that. And then you said, "Oh, can we do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, go on then." But
So it's
really funny because actually,
"Can you pet the dog" Twitter account.
it's probably like one of the single most time-consuming random little things that I did. Because one of the things about this game, because our team was tiny, there's basically Nick did some shaders and did like the first pass version of the road generation system. Like he's quite a technical artist, and then I sort of did the rest of the programming. But like, basically we did all of the heavy lifting, and then Yen wrote the story, which obviously intellectually takes a lot of effort, but from the point of view of the amount of time compared to doing all the programming in the art, it's relatively small. And then Chris, who did the music, he's just like he's like Nick actually. He works ridiculously fast. So what we had to do was we had to try and like make the fewest interactions that would give us the most amount of scope with those interactions, and so petting the dog was one of the things we did. It's literally one interaction, and it's quite a lot of effort to compared to everything else. And I don't mind because it's cool. And I like
just
petting
got
the
to
dog.
that station in time. I'm just sighing.
I was
Sighing in relief.
I was sweating, I'll be honest. I was very intently listening, but the whole time I was like, just get to the gas station, just get to... Another very human thing about this game.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, can I get to the next garage? There's a real sweet spot. You won't be able to hear it probably because of us chentering along while we're talking about the game and stuff, but if you listen to the engine noise, because the car's an automatic, it's actually got 4 gears. If you listen to it change up from 3rd into 4th, and then just keep the revs on the engine just slightly lower than that, you can stay at the bottom end of 4th gear, and that will give you really high petrol economy. So it's just, you sort of have to go to about 60 and then slow down just a little bit, and you'll hear the engine go like and when it drops like that, that's when you just sort of relax the trigger a little bit, and you can go
Okay.
for miles off the petrol then.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I gotta say, the music and the sound design, if we're gonna touch on that a little bit, I would love to hear more about that process as well, because it is lovely. Even before the stream started, it was very relaxing. Just the menu music alone was awesome.
Yeah, Chris did a brilliant job. Like, he really did. And again, but see, Yen has to take some credit for that, because she came along and said, look, what we should do is have two
Yeah.
channels. One should be like Sunny's music and one for Gumar. And Yen then went and found us sort of example music that would be, you know, what people of Gumar's age would listen to. And, you know, what Sunny's into sort of more dangerous sort of dance music-y stuff. And you can actually, you know, you can change the channel in the car, and Sunny's channel, it's not all dance music, but it tends to be more sort of dancey. But Gumar's is sort of really traditional, sort of wibbly wobbly string instrument sort of noises, very sort of traditional Chinese sounding. And there's again this sort of, you get a very sort of different vibe depending on whose music you listen to. And actually, it's like sometimes Gumar will get fed up with listening to Sunny's music and change the channel back over and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's one thing that, like, you know, if we ever get around to doing a sequel, that's something I'd like to do more of, is try to put more random circumstantial stuff happening in the car.
I love that. That's been one of my favorite things so far, is just the little, even the dialogue just popping up as we're driving. It's such a nice break between, because car rides sometimes get quiet and then, oh no, what happened? Oh, I have to actually do that.
I don't.
What do you mean he didn't pump my gas for me? Yeah, I love this
Oh,
too.
no, yeah.
It's so hands-on.
Oh dear.
You might have some petrol, some gas in your.
Yeah, I just bought some actually, but
Yeah,
I didn't.
there you go. You want to just go around the side.
Yeah.
Good thing Sunny brought a torch with her.
Did I not?
Yeah.
I thought I did buy petrol.
No.
Oh.
That's all right. You got loads of money.
Yeah, it's true. I did just sell. I managed to sell the engine at least, so. Oh.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, like, as long as you make more than the 70 it costs to go to the garage between each time when you have to go.
Oh, is that what I have
It's
to do? Oh no.
So
See,
there should be a
someone
go for
comments.
help button.
Subterfuge. I've been enjoying the game so far. Thank you very
You're
much.
more than
Aw.
welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yeah,
Is
you're
it
welcome.
not offering you
Hope
the
you enjoy the
choice
rest
to
of it,
go for help? I think you might have to do that, Tombra.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm like so close to wherever. Okay.
Yeah, you have to turn off the engine first.
Oh, is it not? There we go. Oh no, it's on.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I'm a little stuck here. I've run out of gas
Hey,
even
that
though.
sucks. Okay, so apparently you found a bug that we didn't find. Yeah, I think it's because you're partly up the pavement.
End the stream.
of
Cut the stream.
It's fine though. So if you just go to the main menu and come back, it should fix itself.
Okay, cool.
It should take you back to the garage.
Awesome.
I'll keep my fingers crossed now.
Here we go. Let's see where we landed. Sorry, we only have 5 minutes left. It's a fine time. Okay, so did I just leave then?
There you go. See,
Yeah.
and now you can, like, if you reverse back into the garage,
Okay. So,
you should be able to go back and fill it up.
oh, I know, but we're here. Okay. How do I? Oh, are they?
Left trigger.
Yeah, I don't think I can because of the gas situation. Okay. Alright, we're gonna go to help, even though we're here. That's fun. He's gonna be like, you're right
That's
here.
harsh.
Oh no, the mechanics ripped you off.
I know, right?
Well, do you know, if the keys go in the ignition on the truck, he charges you $75/yen/yuan/pounds.
The Alex, am I right in thinking that the speed that you drive and how aggressively you drive also impacts how fast you burn through the
Yeah,
petrol?
absolutely. Yeah, the actual the underlying engine wear model is actually quite complicated, but the long and short of it is it behaves broadly speaking like a real car. So if you accelerate hard and if the engine's sort of making a high pitched noise,
Yeah.
it'll it runs hotter, it uses more oil, it uses more petrol, and that sort of stuff. So generally you want to try and keep engine revs low.
It's probably safer
and
to drive
actually-
with Gumar's relaxing music on as well, so you drive nice and slowly. And then if you put Sunny's music on, as you know, dance music, it's a bit tempting to
It's the
just
work
rev
of
the
the
engine
devil.
and floor it, and then doesn't do wonders for the car.
Yeah. So I figured out my error. I bought oil instead of petrol because yeah, I don't know why.
So did you actually just get the attendant to fill it for you, or did you just buy a can of petrol?
So he said I was gonna fill it, and I was like, sweet. But it looks like I still have to do it myself.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's see. But I
You
did,
shouldn't
I
have
for
to
real
though. Like I
bought it
think
this
maybe we
time.
just chose the wrong option.
That is very possible. All right, we're good to go now, though.
There we go.
Yeah, it's fine. I really enjoy doing it myself. There's something. We were so close to this.
I know, yeah. It's literally you can see the little glowing green.
Yeah, I saw it from the
Oh wow,
side
yeah,
of the
you
road.
see these.
It's
This is
just
like my
walks.
favourite.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is my favourite story or not. Actually, I don't know which one's my favourite story.
Yeah, what is? I mean,
Mine's got to be the dog story because dog.
That's fair.
Yeah, the dog story's got the dog in it. And when you do Bao, when you visit the dog, she'll sit in the back of your car for the rest of the game once you've got her.
Oh, I should have done that.
Or
first.
can you actually see her when you turn around as well?
Like 95% sure. I haven't looked at it for a little while, but I'm pretty sure you certainly can when she's parked. Like if you've already been to visit Bao Bei, when you park here, you can see her in the little car. She sits it with her feet on the dashboard and barks.
Oh, my
Good
heart.
girl.
I love it. We only have a minute left in the stream. Before we wrap up, is there anything you would love for our viewers to know about Road to Guangdong as we wrap it up? Your final thoughts?
I don't know, James. Did you have anything specific?
I think we've kind of covered it really. I just want to say thank you for Xbox for being as great as ever, supporting our titles, and especially small, weird, heartfelt indie stuff like this. It's great to have a platform, but not only that, but that Xbox actually get behind it and help to give it a push and work with us in that way as well. So thanks.
Of course.
Yeah,
Thank you to
super
Xbox and thank you to
appreciated.
everyone who plays, views the streams, watch Let's Plays, anyone who experiences Road to Guangdong in some way, really.
Yeah, I really hope people. I hope that some people get it. I hope that it just resonates. Even if again, this isn't what James wants, but in my head, if even 10 people get it, and really just touches that bit of them where you go, oh wow, I really, when you finish it, you just wish you hadn't had to finish it. If a few people feel like that, then my job's done, really.
That's awesome. I think we already had a few fans in chat, so I think you're well on your way to that. I'm smitten. This is a beautiful, beautiful narrative. Coupled with just excellent sound design and excellent visual design. I mean, it's just such a huge whole package. And for me, I love little and weird, so I'm always gonna love these kinds of games. So thank you both so much for bringing this, and thank you to everyone on your teams for bringing this to life. This is really, really cool. Again, this was Road to Guangdong, which you could pick up right now. It came out last week. I would highly recommend it if you're looking for a really cool, chill, narrative, heartfelt. I mean, a lot of love was put into Road to Guangdong, and you can just feel that passion. We talk about that a lot on stream, games that you can just tell how much heart was put into it. And yeah, this definitely fits the bill. So check it out. Available right now on Xbox. Super fun. Again, James, Alex, thank you. Thank you, chat, for hanging out with us and watching the game and hearing its story, which is an incredible epic. So yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, an incredible everyday boring epic.
Everyday boring, but what went into
With
it,
a dog.
I think,
But
was
like
just so epic.
yeah,
With a
and-
dog.
Yeah.
With dogs and grumpy aunts.
It's
But I think Gumar's my favourite. She's just so grumpy. I love her.
she's so cute. I love Guma. We will pet all the dogs, K4. All right, everyone.
Oh yeah, and she's got her own story arc as well, actually, which I totally didn't get around to talking about. But the people can find that out
That's a
when they
good
play it.
teaser. Yeah, that's a good teaser, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone, have a
Thank you so
wonderful
much,
week.
Tumblr. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure's all mine.
Thank you very much for having us.
Anytime. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week. We will catch you for more games tomorrow on the Xbox channel. I believe we're doing. We got a fun lineup for tomorrow, so definitely check it out on the Xbox channel. And then Friday, we'll see you for the last campfire. So have a wonderful week, everyone, and we'll see you around.